The moment you walk into a room, people begin forming impressions before you even speak. In this video, you will discover why some individuals naturally command respect without demanding attention, why silent confidence often feels more powerful than loud charisma, and how your energy, posture, emotional control, and psychological boundaries shape the way others perceive you. You will understand the hidden psychology behind presence, the subtle mistakes that weaken your image without you noticing, and the mental shifts that make people feel your value without you trying to prove it. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and leave a comment telling us, do you think respect is earned through words or through presence? Now imagine two people entering the same room. One speaks loudly, laughs aggressively, constantly seeks reactions, and tries to dominate every conversation. The other says little, calm eyes, relaxed posture. No need to interrupt, no need to impress. Yet strangely, people pay more attention to the second person. Why? Because human beings are deeply sensitive to psychological signals. Presence is not about noise, it is about emotional gravity. The calmer and more internally grounded a person is, the more others subconsciously perceive them as secure, valuable, and difficult to manipulate. Most people think respect comes from forcing visibility. In reality, forced attention often creates the opposite effect. The more someone desperately seeks validation, the more others sense emotional dependency beneath the surface. Presence begins with internal stillness. A person who is constantly reacting emotionally loses psychological weight. Every unnecessary explanation weakens mystery. Every attempt to convince others of your worth communicates hidden insecurity. Strong presence is often built through what you refuse to do. You stop over-explaining. You stop chasing approval. You stop trying to win every argument. You become selective with your words because you no longer need external confirmation to feel important. This is why emotionally disciplined people appear powerful even in silence. Their nervous system is not easily hijacked by the environment. They do not rush to fill every silence because silence no longer scares them. Most individuals speak excessively because they fear being ignored, but paradoxically, the people who are least afraid of losing attention often become the center of it. Psychologists understand that human beings unconsciously associate emotional control with competence and authority. Think about moments of crisis. Who appears trustworthy? The person panicking loudly or the person maintaining composure while everyone else loses control? Calmness signals capability. Emotional restraint creates psychological stability around you, and people instinctively gravitate toward stability because chaos exhausts the human mind. But presence is not only emotional, it is physical too. Your posture speaks before your mouth does. Your eyes reveal your internal state. Your movements expose whether your mind is scattered or focused. Fast, restless movements often communicate anxiety. Constant phone checking signals mental dependency. Looking around excessively reveals insecurity. Someone with genuine presence moves deliberately. Their attention is not fragmented. Their body language says, I am comfortable in my own space. And this is where many people misunderstand confidence. Confidence is not performing superiority. True confidence reduces the need for performance entirely. The strongest individuals rarely waste energy trying to appear strong. They do not compete for dominance in every conversation because they are not psychologically threatened by the presence of others. Weak ego constantly seeks comparison. Strong presence remains centered regardless of who enters the room. There is another uncomfortable truth most people avoid. The world respects boundaries more than kindness without limits. Many individuals lose presence because they overextend themselves emotionally. They become too available, too agreeable, too eager to maintain everyone's comfort. But when someone never protects their own time, emotions, or standards, people subconsciously devalue them. Presence grows when others feel that access to you is not automatic. This does not mean becoming cold or arrogant. Arrogance is insecurity wearing expensive clothing. Real presence does not humiliate people. It does not seek control. It simply refuses self-abandonment. Someone with presence can be kind without becoming weak. They can listen without surrendering their identity. They can remain calm without needing to dominate others psychologically. One of the most powerful traits of high presence individuals is selective emotional investment. They do not react to every insult, every opinion, every provocation. Most conflicts are traps designed to pull you into emotional chaos. The person who controls your emotions controls your behavior. That is why emotionally intelligent individuals pause before reacting. They understand that not every battle deserves energy. Silence can sometimes communicate more strength than endless defense. Observe highly respected individuals carefully. They rarely rush. Their speech is slower. Their reactions are measured. Their attention feels intentional. This is because presence is deeply connected to self awareness. When someone is disconnected from themselves, they become reactive to everything outside themselves. Every opinion shakes them, every criticism disturbs them, every rejection feels catastrophic. But people with inner stability carry a different energy because their identity is not built entirely on external validation. The modern world makes presence even more difficult because distraction has become a lifestyle. Constant notifications, endless scrolling, comparison culture, and the obsession with visibility are weakening people psychologically. Many individuals no longer know how to sit quietly with themselves. Their minds are addicted to stimulation. But presence grows in silence. It grows in observation. It grows when you learn to be mentally present instead of emotionally scattered. Some people think they need louder personalities to become respected. In reality, they often need deeper self control. A person who cannot control impulses cannot sustain presence. Discipline changes how people perceive you. The way you manage your time, your attention, your emotions, and your habits silently communicates your internal standards. People may not consciously analyze it, but psychologically they feel it. This is why mysterious individuals often appear attractive. Mystery creates cognitive space. When you reveal everything immediately, people stop exploring your depth. Presence is partially built through restraint, not hiding who you are, but understanding that not every thought, emotion, or achievement needs instant exposure. In a world where everyone is constantly displaying themselves, restraint becomes rare, and rarity creates value. But perhaps the deepest level of presence comes from self respect. The moment you stop betraying your own standards to gain acceptance, your energy changes. People can sense when someone secretly dislikes themselves. It appears in their desperation, their constant need for reassurance, and their inability to walk away from disrespect. Self respect changes your tone, your posture, your decisions, and even your silence. You stop negotiating your worth with people who cannot see it. And strangely, the less you chase respect, the more naturally it arrives. Because genuine presence is not manufactured externally, it is the byproduct of inner order. A calm mind, clear boundaries, emotional discipline, controlled energy, quiet confidence. These qualities create psychological weight that people feel even when you say very little. As this video continues, you will begin to notice how much of human interaction is shaped not by words, but by invisible emotional signals people constantly transmit without awareness. And once you understand these signals, you will never look at confidence, attention, or respect the same way again. If you've reached this point in the video, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with someone who tries too hard to be noticed, and leave a comment with the word presence if you understand that true power is often silent. Most people spend years trying to build an impressive image while neglecting the invisible foundations beneath it. But image without inner stability eventually collapses under pressure. Presence is different. Presence survives pressure because it is rooted in psychological alignment. What you think, what you feel, and how you behave begin to move in the same direction. There is no exhausting performance to maintain, and human beings can unconsciously detect this authenticity faster than you imagine. Have you ever noticed how some people become quieter as they become stronger? This is not accidental. Weakness often feels the need to announce itself loudly because it fears invisibility. Strength becomes comfortable with silence because it no longer fears being overlooked. A person with deep presence understands something most people never learn. Attention and respect are not the same thing. Attention is easy to obtain, respect is much harder. Attention can be created through drama, controversy, noise, or appearance, but respect is usually earned through consistency, emotional control, competence, and self-respect. This is why many loud individuals secretly feel empty. Their identity depends on constant external reactions. If nobody notices them, they begin doubting their value. But a person with grounded presence does not emotionally collapse when the room becomes quiet. Their self-worth is internally anchored, and this internal anchoring changes the psychological dynamic in every interaction. People are unconsciously drawn toward those who seem emotionally complete within themselves. Why? Because emotional dependency creates tension. When someone desperately needs approval, validation, or constant reassurance, others feel psychological pressure around them. But emotionally grounded individuals create psychological space. Their energy feels calm rather than demanding. You never feel forced to manage their emotions constantly, and this emotional independence becomes magnetic. There is also a hidden connection between presence and attention control. Wherever your attention goes, your psychological energy follows. Many people leak their energy everywhere. They obsess over what others think. They constantly compare themselves. They mentally replay conversations for hours. They react emotionally to strangers online. Their focus becomes fragmented, and fragmented attention weakens presence. Someone with strong presence learns to reclaim attention from unnecessary distractions. They stop giving emotional energy to things that do not deserve psychological rent inside their mind. They understand that mental energy is limited. Every unnecessary argument drains it. Every toxic relationship drains it. Every obsession with external validation drains it. Presence grows when your mind stops living everywhere except the present moment. And perhaps one of the most underestimated forms of power is emotional predictability under pressure. People trust stability. Someone who explodes emotionally over small frustrations appears psychologically fragile, but when a person remains composed during discomfort, criticism, or uncertainty, others subconsciously interpret this as strength, not because the person feels nothing, but because they are not controlled by every feeling. This does not mean suppressing emotions completely. Suppression eventually turns into internal poison. Presence is not emotional numbness, it is emotional mastery. There is a difference. Emotional numbness disconnects you from life. Emotional mastery allows you to feel deeply without becoming enslaved by your reactions. The person with presence experiences anger, fear, disappointment, and frustration like everyone else. The difference is that they do not surrender control of their identity to temporary emotions. This is especially important in relationships. Many people unintentionally destroy their presence by over-pursuing others emotionally. They become consumed by the fear of losing someone, and fear changes behavior. It creates clinginess, over-explaining, emotional chasing, and loss of dignity. The moment someone feels you are terrified to lose them, the psychological balance shifts. Presence weakens when your emotional state becomes dependent on another person's approval, but emotionally grounded individuals understand something deeper. Attachment should never cost self-respect. They care deeply, but they do not abandon themselves in the process. They know how to love without becoming psychologically enslaved. This creates emotional balance, and emotional balance creates respect. People with presence also understand the strategic value of silence. Silence is uncomfortable for insecure minds because silence removes distraction. In silence, truth becomes visible. That is why many people speak impulsively. They rush to defend themselves before anyone even attacks them. They overshare personal details to fill emotional emptiness. They interrupt silence because silence forces confrontation with their own thoughts. But someone with presence becomes comfortable with pauses, comfortable with observation, comfortable with not reacting immediately. In fact, delayed reactions often create more power than instant responses. The ability to pause before speaking demonstrates internal control. It signals that your emotions do not dominate your mind. This is why calm individuals often appear intimidating without trying. People cannot easily manipulate someone who is emotionally disciplined. And here is another reality many people ignore. Your environment affects your presence more than your motivation does. Constantly surrounding yourself with chaos, negativity, gossip, shallow validation, and emotional instability slowly weakens your psychological center. Presence requires mental cleanliness, not perfection, but intentionality. The people you spend time with shape your emotional habits, your standards, and even your nervous system. Eventually, your environment becomes your identity. That is why many powerful individuals become extremely selective with access, not because they hate people, but because they understand psychological influence. Energy is contagious. Emotional states spread. Anxiety spreads. Desperation spreads. Confidence spreads too. Calmness spreads too. Presence is partly built through protecting your inner atmosphere from constant emotional pollution. The frightening truth is that modern society often rewards performance more than substance. Many people become experts at appearing confident online while internally collapsing in private. But eventually, reality exposes inconsistency. Presence cannot be faked forever because true presence emerges most clearly under pressure. Anyone can appear composed when life is easy. Real presence appears during rejection, uncertainty, humiliation, failure, and emotional pain. When someone loses everything yet still carries dignity, calmness, and self control, people feel something powerful around them. Because deep down, human beings admire emotional resilience more than surface level success. A person who remains psychologically centered during hardship communicates hidden strength without needing to announce it. And maybe this is the final paradox of presence. The people who command the most respect are often the least obsessed with being respected, because obsession itself communicates lack. The moment your entire identity depends on controlling how others perceive you, you lose freedom. Presence begins when you stop performing constantly and start becoming internally solid instead. As this journey continues, you will begin understanding why some people dominate spaces without raising their voice, why emotional discipline changes social dynamics completely, and why the strongest energy in the room is often the calmest one. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with someone who needs to reclaim their inner strength, and leave a comment describing the kind of presence you want to build within yourself. There is a reason certain individuals leave a lasting impression even after they are gone. It is not always beauty, not always status, not always intelligence. Sometimes it is simply the emotional atmosphere they carry with them. Presence is energy organized through self awareness. When someone is internally chaotic, others feel tension around them, even if they smile constantly. But when a person becomes mentally centered, emotionally disciplined, and psychologically grounded, people feel calmness in their presence without fully understanding why. This is because human beings communicate far beyond language. Tone, eye contact, emotional rhythm, facial tension, breathing patterns, and nervous system stability all transmit invisible information constantly. You may say confident words, but if your body communicates anxiety, people subconsciously believe your body more than your speech. Presence is the alignment between your internal state and your external behavior. And this alignment cannot be manufactured overnight. It is built quietly through habits nobody applauds, through learning when to remain silent, through controlling impulsive reactions, through walking away from situations that destroy your peace, through keeping promises to yourself, even when nobody is watching. Every small act of self discipline strengthens psychological integrity, and integrity creates presence. Many people search for techniques to appear powerful without addressing the deeper issue beneath their behavior: internal insecurity. They memorize confidence tricks, manipulate body language, force eye contact, or imitate dominant personalities. But imitation eventually cracks because borrowed confidence collapses under emotional pressure. Real presence is not copied, it is developed internally. When someone genuinely respects themselves, their behavior changes naturally. They stop begging for attention in subtle ways. They stop trying to impress everyone. They stop shrinking themselves to avoid rejection. They stop tolerating constant disrespect just to keep temporary connections. Their standards rise quietly, and strangely, people begin treating them differently not because they demanded respect, but because their energy no longer invites mistreatment. This is one of the harshest truths about human psychology. People often treat you according to the emotional standards you unconsciously communicate. If you constantly tolerate disrespect, over-explain your value, chase unavailable people, or abandon your boundaries to avoid loneliness, others subconsciously learn that your self-respect is negotiable. Presence weakens when your identity becomes flexible under pressure. But when someone develops inner standards that do not collapse emotionally every time they fear losing approval, their entire social dynamic changes. They become calmer, more selective, less reactive, less desperate for validation. And this emotional independence creates gravity around them. People begin listening more carefully because the person no longer speaks from emotional hunger. Their words carry more weight because they are not speaking constantly just to be noticed. Silence increases the value of speech when used intentionally. This is why disciplined individuals often sound more impactful even with fewer words. Their communication is compressed, focused, and emotionally controlled. Compare this to someone who constantly explains themselves, argues endlessly online, reacts emotionally to every criticism, and seeks validation from strangers. Over time, such behavior creates psychological exhaustion not only internally, but also socially. Others begin perceiving emotional instability even if they never consciously say it aloud. Presence is damaged when your emotional reactions become predictable and uncontrolled. One of the strongest forms of presence is the ability to remain centered when others attempt to provoke you emotionally. Provocation is often a test of psychological access. Some people intentionally disturb others because controlling someone's emotions creates a feeling of power. The person who reacts impulsively becomes emotionally predictable, but someone with strong presence does not immediately surrender emotional control to the environment. They observe before reacting, they think before speaking. They understand that not every opinion deserves emotional investment. This restraint creates an aura of stability that many people secretly admire because most individuals are controlled by impulse without realizing it. And perhaps this is why calm individuals are often misunderstood at first. Society frequently confuses loudness with confidence and emotional impulsiveness with authenticity. But over time, substance reveals itself. People eventually notice who remains stable during pressure, who maintains dignity during conflict, and who preserves self control when emotions rise. Long term respect is almost always connected to consistency, not performance. There is also a deep relationship between presence and purpose. Individuals without direction often become psychologically dependent on external stimulation. They obsess over attention because they lack meaningful internal focus. But people who are deeply connected to goals, values, and personal growth naturally radiate different energy. Their mind is occupied with building, learning, improving, and evolving rather than constantly monitoring how others perceive them. Purpose reduces insecurity because your attention shifts away from endless social comparison. You become less interested in proving yourself and more interested in becoming yourself. And this subtle shift changes everything. Many individuals waste years trying to dominate rooms when true presence often comes from emotional non-neediness. The less you emotionally beg the world to recognize your value, the more your value becomes visible naturally. Desperation clouds perception. Calm self-respect clarifies it. This is also why solitude becomes important in developing presence. A person who cannot tolerate being alone usually becomes psychologically dependent on distraction, validation, or external noise. But solitude forces confrontation with the self. It exposes insecurities, emotional addictions, hidden fears, and unresolved inner chaos. Most people avoid silence because silence reveals what distraction hides, yet growth often begins there. The individuals who command respect quietly are usually those who have spent time rebuilding themselves internally without applause. They have learned how to survive disappointment without collapsing emotionally. They have learned how to sit with uncertainty without panicking. They have learned how to lose people without losing themselves. This creates depth, and depth changes presence completely. Because ultimately, presence is not about making people feel your importance. It is about becoming internally stable enough that your energy speaks before your words do. It is about carrying yourself with quiet certainty even when nobody is validating you externally. It is about protecting your peace without becoming emotionally cold. And it is about understanding that the strongest person in the room is not always the loudest one, but often the one most in control of themselves. If you are still watching, it means part of you understands that real power is psychological before it is social. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with someone trying to rebuild their inner strength, and leave a comment saying, "Silent power," if you are learning to command respect without chasing attention. And maybe that is the final lesson most people discover too late. Presence is not something you wear like a mask, it is something you become through repeated moments of self control, honesty, discipline, and emotional maturity. It is built every time you choose peace over chaos, restraint over impulsiveness, growth over ego, and dignity over desperation. Most people spend their lives trying to force recognition from the outside world while ignoring the instability inside themselves. But eventually, life exposes everyone. Pressure reveals character, rejection reveals emotional strength, silence reveals self worth. And in those moments, no performance can save you, only inner stability remains. That is why the people with the strongest presence often have painful histories nobody sees. They learned through betrayal not to abandon themselves. They learned through loneliness how to stand emotionally on their own. They learned through disappointment that external validation is temporary. And slowly, after enough struggle, they stopped trying to control how everyone perceived them. They focused instead on controlling their mind, protecting their peace, and becoming someone they themselves could respect. Deep presence is born when a person no longer needs to prove their importance every moment. They become calm because they understand their value does not disappear when attention disappears. They stop forcing conversations, stop chasing approval, stop reacting emotionally to every challenge. And ironically, this quiet emotional independence makes others notice them even more. Because human beings remember energy more than words. Long after conversations end, people remember how someone made them feel. They remember who remained calm under pressure, who carried dignity during conflict, who radiated certainty without arrogance, who listened without insecurity, who spoke with intention instead of noise. That is real presence, not loudness, not performance. Not constant visibility, but emotional depth combined with self control. And perhaps the greatest advantage of developing presence is not social respect at all, it is internal freedom. The freedom of no longer being controlled by every opinion, every rejection, every comparison, and every temporary emotion. The freedom of walking into any room without feeling the need to shrink yourself or prove yourself. The freedom of becoming emotionally grounded enough that your peace no longer depends entirely on external reactions. Once you reach that state, something changes permanently. You stop fearing silence. You stop fearing solitude. You stop fearing being misunderstood by people who were never capable of understanding you deeply anyway. And from that point forward, your energy becomes different, more stable, more intentional, more powerful without effort. So as you move through life after this video, remember this carefully. The strongest presence in the room is often the person most at peace with themselves, not the loudest voice, not the most aggressive personality, but the individual who has mastered their emotions, protected their self-respect, and learned how to remain calm in a world addicted to noise. If this video helped you see presence from a deeper psychological perspective, subscribe to the channel and become part of this journey towards self-mastery, emotional intelligence, and inner strength. Like the video because every interaction helps this message reach more people searching for real growth. Share this video with someone who tries too hard to be noticed, someone rebuilding themselves silently, or someone learning that true power does not need to scream for attention. And finally, leave a comment below and answer this question. What do you think creates stronger presence? Silence, confidence, discipline, or emotional control? Your perspective may help someone else understand themselves more deeply. Until the next video, protect your peace, strengthen your mind, and never forget that the most powerful energy is often the calmest one.